Our next step on this is to apply the layer mask. To do that, just go to the layer with the layer mask, click on the layer mask, and then right click on the layer mask and go to Apply Layer Mask. When you do that, you'll notice that the layer mask is now gone and the background is now completely removed. You still have your original layer down here if you need it for anything, but we're going to turn that off. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to change this layer to black and white. So while on the layer, go up to Image, Adjustments, Black and White, and say OK. Now I'm going to duplicate the layer. So I have my Zoe layer and a Zoe copy layer. I'm going to rename the Zoe copy layer to Hair. Alright, so I have my Zoe layer and my hair layer. Now I'm going to work with these two layers to get rid of the gray areas. I want to make this more contrasty, more black and white, with less gray in between. And I'm going to do this first with the hair layer. And when I do this, I'm not worried about the face. I'm only concentrating on the hair. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and we're going to use Levels. And while on the Levels screen, you're going to be moving these three arrows up here. And if I move this one to the left, you'll notice everything gets lighter, brighter. The center one you can take back and forth to get lighter or darker. And so I'm just trying to get rid of some of these gray areas. Now I wouldn't want to make it so dark that we can't see any color showing through. So you do want to make it light enough so we can see some highlights there, but just as little gray as possible. So this is a screen print, and this is where the colors black and white would be. And so we're just don't want to see much gray. And again, we're not worried about her face. So if her face gets really like washed out like that, it doesn't matter. We're only looking at the hair. But I don't want the hair to be quite that washed out. Maybe something like that, and say OK. All right, now that the hair is done, I'm going to turn it off, and I'm doing the same thing to the face. This time I'm going to ignore the hair and just focus on the face. So Image, Adjustments, Levels. And again, I want this to be black and white with very little gray in it, but I don't want the face details to get washed out. I need to be able to see her lips and all the little details of her face. But I want to brighten that up as much as possible. Okay, maybe something like that. Okay, I'm going to turn the hair on. You can see the hair's a lot more brightened up, okay, than the face was. And I'm going to go to the hair layer. I'm going to actually turn my Zoe layer off and turn my original background on, because I want to be able to see the color version of this while I do this. So while on the hair layer, you're going to go over to your eraser tool. You want to set your eraser to a 0% hardness, so a soft brush. And then you're going to come down and you're going to erase everything but the hair on this hair layer. So watch what happens as I do this. So I'm erasing the hair, and so what's going to come showing through is that color version of this. But be careful not to get the hair, so we don't want the hair erased. Okay, now I want to point out that when you're doing this, remember you're erasing pixel data. This is not the same as a layer mask where you can bring back what you've just erased, the only way to do that is to use the history. So if you've made a mistake, make sure you use the history to go back on that. I'm going to go ahead and turn my color copy off now so I can see what I have here. And then I'll turn my black and white copy back on to see how these two things look together. And I have some areas in here where I'm not really sure what's going on, so I'm going to actually lower my opacity on this so I can see that a little bit better. Go back to my color version so I can see where I really need to erase and what I want to keep on this. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a temporary layer. I'll turn my opacity back up to 100. Add a temporary layer underneath that layer and use that trick where I dump a bright color on that to see what I'm missing. Okay, so that's just going to help me to get these areas that I could not see before. Okay, so everything that I'm leaving here is going to actually get that hair color. And I'm going to use a yellow for blonde because I'm going to follow the exact same colors in Andy Warhol's Marilyn Monroe, the version that we looked at last time. So her hair is going to get a yellow on it. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'll throw my temporary layer away. Okay, and turn my Zoe layer back on. And so this is what they look like together. And the next thing I'm going to do today is I'm going to add a layer above my hair layer. And I'm going to call that background. Actually, let's call that foreground since we already have a background. Okay, so that's my foreground color. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open up my Marilyn in Photoshop so I can use it as a color sample or a color source. You do not need to do that. If you can choose whatever colors you want for this project, so you can be creative, but if you really want to just follow what Andy Warhol did, then you can open this up and use it the way I'm going to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and find that. Okay, and then to make this easy on myself, I'm going to start a new layer, which I'll keep on the top, and I'm going to call it Color Samples. Okay, and on that layer, I'm just going to do little dots of color that I will be using. So, getting my Marilyn back over here where I can see it. Kind of need to be able to see both these things. Okay, so with my eyedropper tool, I'm going to sample the background color. And then I go to my paintbrush. This time I'm going to change it to a hard brush. I'm going to come out here and just do a dot of the background. And I'm going to do all of these right now so I just have them ready to go. Okay, so now I have all of the colors that I'm going to be using. I can keep this open though, just as a reference, but I'm all set to go with this. So my foreground, which is the area around my subject, is going to be this orange color. So I'm going to go to my foreground, grab that orange color by just clicking on my sample dot, and I'm going to paint bucket dump orange on it. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my eraser tool again, and this time I want to be on a hard brush with 100% hardness, and I want to change my blending mode to multiply so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to erase all of this orange color wherever my subject is. So remember, we are creating a screen print effect, which means that I wouldn't move this foreground underneath these and just have it showing through on the background, because screen printing doesn't work that way. It works by using stencils with a color for each area. So you're not layering colors or putting colors behind colors. You have to have colors independent And so you would have to cut away all of this area where we'll be laying down other color. Okay, and I want to point out that we are not looking for perfection here because screen printing is not a perfect art, but you do want to get your edges nice and smooth as much as possible, especially on this step. The other color I have a way of putting down so that we don't have to be quite as careful, but for this first step, when we're erasing this foreground color, we need to take our time and do a really good job on this. That will help us get a good result for the whole rest of the project. For areas of little strands that come out like this, I would just leave that as it is. Don't erase that part. Okay, when you get most of it done, if you feel like you need to go back and add orange back in, you can do that. So you just go back to your paintbrush and you add back in wherever you feel like you went too far out. Now, let me just talk to you a little bit about this. When you're on multiply, you do not want to grab the orange that's on multiply and start painting because you'll end up getting like a really weird result with that. So make sure that you are on your original orange and not using a multiplied color. Okay, and I'm going to use the hand tool again to just move around. Anything that looks like a brush, a circle looking thing, I want to get rid of that and try to get this nice and straight. We don't want to see a bunch of half circles around the edge of your subject here. All right, that will be it for today's tutorial. When you're done, make sure you save and please let me know if you have any questions.